Greetings from Norma Irwin in Belfast, Northern Ireland. The title of my short presentation is Introducing Bridge into the Curriculum in Primary Schools. Our background. A number of years ago, there were quite a few primary schools, post-primary schools in Northern Ireland playing bridge. I taught in one of the schools where I ran a successful bridge club for many years and acted on several occasions as host to the Northern Ireland Schools Bridge Tournament. The numbers have greatly reduced to 2 schools in the North Belfast area and 1 in Bangor, County Down. So the Northern Ireland Bridge Union asked the Youth Committee to try to stimulate an interest in the game and to promote it in schools. Norma, Lacey and I were tasked with this project. How we identified the schools. We looked at the 2 post-primary schools north of Belfast where bridge clubs were already established, Belfast Royal Academy and Carrickfergus Grammar School. We listed all the feeder primary schools in their catchment area and we picked 2 of these schools, Eden Primary School and Green Island Primary School. We made appointments with the principals of each. We were received with enthusiasm in both schools. In Northern Ireland, Year 7 pupils still sit transfer tests each November. Therefore, schools are interested in extracurricular projects for the spring term for these pupils. We were delighted when both principals offered us timetable classes for our bridge lessons. Previously, I had set up an after-school club in Strandtown Primary School in East Belfast. I approached the principal there again, and he permitted this club to restart. We had our first 3 schools on board. The news of our project spread, and we were approached by another school in North Belfast, St Mary's on the Hill. They asked to join our initiative. We went to meet with the principal there and arranged again timetabled bridge classes to start in January 2019. These are the 4 schools involved in the first year of our primary school project. Each school sent a letter home to parents outlining the plans for our bridge lessons and requesting permission for the children to participate. None refused. We had our schools, so we had to recruit our tutors. We decided to take the personal approach. We talked to our fellow bridge players in our own clubs, initially concentrating on teachers. But as word of our project spread, we had expressions of interest from a wide range of players. A meeting was arranged with prospective tutors in November 2018. 20 interested bridge players attended. We had to ensure that all our tutors were covered by access clearance checks for the non-teaching staff to enter schools. This was the most laborious task we faced. Also, it is important to ensure that everyone understood the child protection rules to which we had to adhere when in a classroom situation. Our programme was set up to be designed for 12 weeks. We then had to find our equipment. The NIBU offered to finance our project, giving us a generous grant of £1,000. Through the union website, I appealed to clubs for boards and bidding boxes, which they may no longer need. There was a great response to this appeal, which allowed us then to spend some money on purchasing Polly Pockets for the pupils' notes and worksheets, large demonstration cards for the tutors, storage boxes, 1 for each class, wood to make card holders, and paper and inks for printing. The training. Each tutor was contacted to arrange school and which times best suited. A further meeting was organised to give the tutors the prepared lesson plans, the worksheets which accompanied each lesson, a set of 16 boards, and large teaching cards. A folder containing an introduction to the lessons was provided for each pupil. As the course progressed, the worksheets and prepared notes were put into this folder. Therefore, at the end of the course, each pupil had a complete set of notes to keep. Our class organisation. In our timetabled lessons, the class teacher or classroom assistant was present, so we allowed 2 tutors for 16 pupils. In the after-school clubs, no extra support was available, so we had 1 tutor per table. The lessons were set up in such a way that the pupils were only working with 12 and then 24 cards in the first 2 weeks. In week 3, when the full pack was introduced, many of the pupils had difficulty holding the 13 cards, so the card holders were then introduced from this point onwards. Also, as the school desks were quite often made from polished wood, it wasn't easy for the pupils to lift and play the cards, so we provided felt table covers, which made a big difference. The lead tutor would introduce the main points. We had decided on an informal approach so that the tutors were introduced by their first names. However, we did expect the pupils to raise their hands, to give answers or to ask questions, so that reasonable discipline was maintained. Quiz sheets were prepared for revision. Tutors could use the boards to illustrate a technique or to list the key points. Again, as the lessons progressed, hands for each week were prepared in advance, so the tutors were provided with many examples of hands that could be used for each topic. It is so important to control the hands at this stage. Also, when explaining a line of play, it is essential to use simple language and not the technical terms that we would often use as bridge players. It wasn't easy to strike a balance with the lessons because some pupils understood very quickly while others worked much more slowly. We found it was helpful to have 1 copy of each notes on the table for quick reference or to put the relevant points on the classroom board. Our progress. The initial practice was designed to establish the basics of play and to illustrate the big difference between flat and distributional hands. The point count was introduced, leading to several lessons of a mini bridge style play, with emphasis at this stage on developing partnership understanding. The value of combined points was highlighted. In the final weeks, I introduced formal bidding, which we informally called learning the lingo, and bidding boxes were used, causing great excitement. We restricted the bidding to 1 level openers with suits and no trump. However, often at the end of the lesson, we would use a random deal, which allowed the pupils freedom to try to put into action what they felt was the right bid and line of play. Some low points. In some schools, the teaching areas were not ideal. A very few less engaged pupils proved a distraction for the majority. Also, 12 lessons limited us to giving a very simple introduction to the game. And some high points. The great support we received from schools and from staff was amazing. The interest shown and the ideas suggested by our tutors. The enthusiastic approach of the vast majority of the pupils. All our tutors had worked on a voluntary basis, giving their time freely. As a token of their appreciation, the NIBU funding allowed us to organise a bridge review evening with duplicate bridge and supper for the tutors. This was received with enthusiasm and a most enjoyable social event to round off our first experimental year. The feedback and future plans. Generally, the pupils were enthusiastic about their experiences. Quite a few started to play cards at home, and some found bridge games on their iPads or phones. Several of the teaching staff, mainly those who had sat in our lessons, played bridge with their classes some afternoons after all the normal lessons were finished. The tutors were also very constructive and helpful with their feedback comments. I had planned most of all the lessons and prepared the worksheets and quizzes. This was really quite time consuming. So in future, I will ask one tutor from each school to do the printing for their pupils from the master copies I provide. The majority of our pupils tutors were willing to work for a further term, starting in January 2020. Also, in several schools, rather than take classes on 2 different days, I arranged for 2-hour slots for bridge, with one class group attending the first hour and the other class attending the second. Our tutors were happy to accommodate these arrangements. News of our project had spread, and we had requests for help from 6 more primary schools. I met with the Belfast and Lisburn principals, while Anne Hassan, who had assisted as tutors in Green Island, met and supported these schools in the North Antrim area. We obtained permission again from the principals to run the course, and we therefore had to recruit 12 more tutors. So our second year of bridge in primary school started in January 2020, with approximately 180 pupils being taught in timetable classes and a further 60 due to start in March 2020. There were 24 pupils in after-schools clubs. We had 22 tutors delivering lessons and 8 more trained and prepared to start in Lisburn in March. We were so pleased to host Professor Sam Punch on a visit to 3 of our schools in March 2020, just a few days before lockdown. Since then, everything has been on hold. However, we have gleaned a lot of experience and will certainly make an effort to continue once the national system permits it. While still at the mini bridge stage, my favourite story is about one boy who was playing out his cards and had to place the King of Hearts. His tutor asked, "Which hand do you think it's in?" The boy promptly replied, "It must be in West's hand," because East had announced that she held 8 points, and she had already played an ace and a queen, so she could not have 3 more points. Look out, Sam Punch. Finally, I have a few thank yous and appreciation to Liz McGowan from the Scottish Bridge Union. I still refer to a very well-worn copy of lessons that she sent to me many years ago. Thomas McCormick from CBAI. I used many of his prepared hands that he had provided for his own pupils. Helen Hall has been our audio and technical director. Diane Greenwood has been a great support and was always willing to teach extra classes when needed. Anne Hassan came up with lots of ideas and was a great support, especially with the North Antrim schools. And finally, I would like to thank the NIBU for allowing us the freedom to organise the project and for the funding. Thank you all.